Good afternoon, everyone. This is Em. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes, but I'd like to do a sound check before we begin. So if you can hear me, please click yes in the system. If you can hear this audio, please check yes. It's a green circle with a check mark in it. Great. All right, we'll get started in 1 minute. This presentation is in the assessment library under webinars. So if you'd like to pull that up and use it or take notes as we go through the presentation, feel free to do that. It is in the assessment library under the webinar section. Also, as a reminder, if you have a webcam on, you should cover it up or disable it so that it is not displaying for the entire audience of the webinar. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving and actually took time off and rested and did not think about testing. We are going to go over quite a few things today. A lot of it will be reminders and things that you already know. So I hope that it is not too overwhelming, but I wanted to make sure you all have this information before testing for fall. High school begins tomorrow. Our month-by-month checklist for this school year is located in the assessment library. This document is a great resource for you to check to make sure that you are completing the tasks and steps as far as preparation for testing and accountability throughout the school year. So a few things I wanted to highlight, even though it is the end of the month for November, we are starting our fall high school window tomorrow, which will end December 14th. For December, a few things to note would be that December 31st is the last opportunity to download and update the Air Secure browser for ELPT. So your district technology coordinator has heard about this for several months. We've had information in the webinars, and I'll show you some more again, but it is almost December, so you want to make sure that your technology coordinator has updated the browser for the English language proficiency test in the screener. There are also some readiness checks for ACT Online that should be completed in December, verifying and uploading student information for ACT, and then our monthly assessment and accountability call will be on December 11th at 1 o'clock. All right, so let's jump into accountability. The department released the 2017-2018 accountability results for schools and for early childhood centers on November 8th. And the release of those profiles was one step in the annual process for improvement. The 2017-2018 results reflected the three key shifts in our expectations for schools. One, raising expectations of what it means to be an A school gradually between now and 2025. 2, being rewarding progress students make throughout the year in addition to their absolute performance. And 3rd, identifying and supporting schools struggling generally or with a particular group of students. The full presentation of the 2018 school performance scores is linked on this slide, and this is a much lengthier presentation that goes over the release of the school performance scores, highlights about the data, and ways for districts to communicate this information to schools and parents. A few things to note are that more Louisiana students than ever before graduated from high school in 4 years. The statewide 4-year graduation rate increased from 77% to 78.2%. Also, the number of Louisiana students meeting ACT's college readiness benchmark has increased by nearly 40% since 2012. As schools reacted to higher expectations, the letter grade distribution shifted modestly. 76% of our schools are in the same grade under the new formula as the old formula, and 3% did better under the new formula. We are very excited to recognize 477 schools as top gains honorees for achieving an A on the Progress Index, and 191 schools as equity honorees for performing in the top 10% of all schools statewide among students with disabilities, English learners, or economically disadvantaged students. All honorees have no urgent intervention required labels. This year's release also identified schools struggling overall, meaning comprehensive intervention is required, and with specific groups of students, or for discipline, meaning urgent intervention required. A total of 502 schools will require improvement plans. For our early childhood performance profiles, these trends are also located on the full webinar, but a few things to note are that more than 14,000 observations were conducted in over 1,000 sites and over 5,000 classrooms, which amounts to more than 1 million minutes of care and education observed. We also had 10% more sites rated proficient or above since last year. There are challenges that remain. We have too many students that are not receiving the instruction needed to fully prepare them for kindergarten, and there are differences in access for publicly funded seats by age. Louisiana has shown improvement over 3 years of statewide implementation of its Birth to 5 unified quality rating system, with more programs scoring proficient and above and fewer scoring approaching proficient or unsatisfactory. We had 90 sites that demonstrated excellence with no unsatisfactory scores in any domain, 151 sites demonstrating high performance for the state's youngest learners, and 52 sites demonstrated more than 1 point of growth on a 7-point scale. You can access the 2018 honor roll using the link on the screen. Some next steps in supporting the school and center improvement are located on this slide. So this winter, schools should be holding parent nights to share the school performance results with families. Also, school system will submit plans in Super App February 1st. So all of these pieces really help make up the next steps as far as how to plan for next school year and also how to help kids during this school year. As you know, the Louisiana School Finder has school performance scores and early childhood performance profiles in this online tool. The School Finder provides families with school performance scores and early childhood performance ratings, basic information about schools and centers, and listings of course offerings, clubs, enrichment, and extracurricular activities. And that website is louisianaschools.com. The department will update monthly the About Our School section in School Finder to reflect any changes made in sponsor site at the end of each prior month. So principal names and course offerings will be updated in January. If you would like to get more information about this, you can reference the School Finder data guide. And the timeline for these events are located on this slide. The Principal and Superintendent Secure Portal, which is louisianaschools.info, is an interactive data exploration tool first launched last December to support school systems and school leaders understand their academic, early childhood, and workforce talent data. The portal will be updated with the 2017-2018 accountability results by December 6th. For new principals and school system leaders who need access to the Principal and Superintendent Secure Reporting Portal, there is a user request form that is placed in the Data Management FTP. The name of the file is located here. So your data management coordinator should retrieve the file and provide this to your superintendent for updating. Once updates have been completed, the file needs to be renamed using the guidelines below. And superintendents will send an email to system support at la.gov confirming the request and giving consent to the department to grant access to those users. Beginning in January, district security coordinators will have the authority directly to designate secure portal users, and we will give more information about this process next month. As required in Bulletin 111, the department is recommending revisions to the ACT WorkKeys Concordance table to reflect the changes to the WorkKeys assessment and scoring. These revisions reflected on this slide will be considered at the December BESI meeting for implementation, beginning with the 2018-2019 school performance scores. And this is a list of accountability resources just as a reference for you all. All right, let's jump into assessment administration. So the next several slides are reminders. These have been in probably every webinar we do, but there are some new people on the call, and just as a refresher for you and your teams, I'll briefly go through the next chunk of slides and really just call out really important things just to make sure that you're thinking about those things as we start testing tomorrow. All right, so for technology readiness, there is a move report that is available in eDirect. This became available last month, and it is under the View Reports tab. This report was requested by you all so that you could identify students that were removed from your school system from eScholar for any of the LEAP 360 assessments and the practice tests. So in eDirect, under the View Reports tab, there will be a move report that is updated weekly so that you know what students have been removed from your school system. All right, for the fall high school window, again, it starts tomorrow and ends December 14th. We definitely want to make sure that you have a very tight plan with your technology staff at the district level and any at the school site. So your technology support plan with your tech director should have included already making sure your TSM and Insight are set up on all devices. You've checked the devices to make sure that they are working. All testing rooms have the appropriate equipment. There is a communication plan that you have delivered to your school test coordinators and other key personnel to know how to communicate with you and the district test coordinator at the district level. Also, any other stakeholders such as principals, test administrators, proctors, things like that, they are aware of that communication plan as well. So the preparation that has been done already from your technology staff or your school staff has been to make sure that Insight is working. There are a couple of ways to ensure that this is happening. One is you can select a text-to-speech OTT to log into, and if the computer reads the text-to-speech, then you are set up successfully. Also, another way you can check is by clicking on the check mark at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and completing the readiness check. And that will let you know that your system has everything it needs and is good to go for testing, but it will also tell you anything that needs to be fixed or updated before you test. So these things may have been done in the summer or earlier in the school year. If you're using Leap 360 and you're using the system, then you should be fine. So you don't need to do that again. Some resources on the next few slides are just reminders. So again, your staff, your technology team at the district level, and your school test coordinator or school technology coordinator should have these documents and know them, know that they exist, know how to use them. So the first one is the technology FAQ. This is a list of questions we get from technology coordinators and from test coordinators about technology related to assessment, and they're broken into the categories on this screen so they can jump to the section that they need and get an explanation, resources, support on how to handle a certain situation or how to prepare for certain things. The other documents really that could be in the hands of test administrators as well, but your school test coordinator should definitely be familiar with this, and that's the technical troubleshooting tips document. This is a way for school level personnel to troubleshoot before they reach you all. So it has the most common things that are asked, such as the username doesn't work, or the password doesn't work, or the audio isn't playing. It'll have all of those things listed in a chart and things you can do at the school site to troubleshoot without having to always go to the district level. And as you all know, this is the protocol for communication that we have at the department. So during testing, we or DRC should be the last point of contact for a situation after steps have already been done. So if a student notices something incorrect in the system, their password isn't working, the audio is not working, they should raise their hand, and there's a TA in the room that test administrator should troubleshoot. If the test administrator still needs support, there should be a way that the TA can communicate with the school test coordinator. It could be that they have a red flag on the outside of their room, or they buzz the intercom, or whatever the school has set up is a way to notify school leadership, and that group of people should then try to troubleshoot. There's plenty of resources, as I've mentioned earlier. You all have made things as well, so they should try to do what they can at the school before they contact the district. Then, if they cannot fix the problem, they should contact the district, meaning you or the technology coordinator or whatever system you have already set up with your teams. And then, if you all are still needing support, then you should reach out to DRC if it is a technical issue. So anything related to technology, using the system. If it's a general assessment question or a situation that you need to talk through, that is when you should call us. Also, as a reminder, the hotline number, Brian and Rachel answer on my team. So if you call the hotline and it is busy, you can call the other number, which will go to our other hotline. So start with this one first. The message on, or the voicemail of the assessment hotline is me saying this is the other number to call to the hotline. So both of those phones will be available. A lot of you all call me, call my desk, my cell phone, email. We are going to be working constantly to handle any questions or concerns that come up. So feel free to call and ask. I would also remind you, and you might just want to really stress this to your school test coordinators, that if a situation that could be a testing irregularity arises, you should definitely have them reach out to you and you reach out to me so that we can help fix the problem before it becomes a testing irregularity. And I know a lot of you all have learned that the hard way. So our goal is not to have any tests voided and for there to be no testing irregularities and that kids take the test and get the score. So we want to make sure that we support you doing that. So I'd much rather you call us or email us about a situation and us try to help you through it before it becomes a testing irregularity. So make sure that your school test coordinators know that as well. The other key thing would be that we'll talk about in a second is the one main role of the test administrator is to actively monitor. So if those TAs are actively monitoring, then they're preventing any situation, problems, plagiarisms, anything from coming up. And so if something does, again, reach out to us. We are more than happy to help. So the next thing that I want to talk about is something that our technology directors at the district level have already heard about. They're actually at LaQ today at a training, getting training on this. They received this in a couple other webinars, but a lot more detailed and technical information. But I wanted to give you all a high level view of what's happening. So next school year in 2019-2020, all of our assessments will change to a new testing site manager. So right now you have a TSM, devices at schools are connected to a TSM. We are upgrading the TSM to a newer version called Central Office TSM. This TSM is beneficial in several ways, but the most important thing I want you all to know is it's easier with this new testing site manager to install, configure, manage all the online testing environment from one location. The January supervisor collaboration will have information for technology coordinators, and there will also be two webinars, one on January 29th and one on February 7th. This is really going to be a very technical webinar, so this is definitely geared towards the people on the ground doing the work, pushing this out and updating it. But I would recommend that you all attend just so you get an idea of what's happening, because it obviously does impact you all. But technology coordinators, this is their role here to help push this out and make sure that it is installed before next school year. As I mentioned earlier, the ELPT secure browser will need to be updated. So you have until December 31st. You can continue to use the browser that is up there now until December 31st, but you can go ahead and do this ahead of time and be ready. Once the new year rolls over, you will no longer be allowed to use the current browser. And on this slide, these are some of the resources I already talked through, but other things that might be helpful for your teams throughout the year, but especially as testing starts tomorrow. I'm going to pause for just a few questions that have come in, so give me just a second. We have a question about the logos for the top gains and equity honorees. Those logos were sent to every district. So whenever they were awarded the equity honoree or the top gains, they were also sent the logo through email. We have a question about people having access to the move report that was mentioned a few slides ago in eDirect. So everything, as you know, in eDirect is permissions-based. If you were to give the move report to a school level, that means they are seeing every kid in the district. So I would not recommend that. They should not be seeing PII of kids at every other school in your district. So it is a district level report that will have every kid that's moved out for you to look at. I know we've had a couple districts that have taken that file and just copied and pasted that school's students and sent it to them through email or a different Excel file. So that might be your best bet to inform school test coordinators that it is a district file. We have another question about the move report. So yes, it means that a student was dropped from your school and is in a new school system in Louisiana, and it's been moved through eScholar. So that student has transferred in eScholar from one school to another school in another district. We have another question about the system readiness check. So the slide in here gives directions on how to do it. All of our other presentations also have information about it, but it's very simple. You are going to click a check mark when you log into Insight and type in the code 7745, and that's it. So most of our schools have kids do this. So if you have devices you have not used this year for LEAP 360 or practice tests, I would definitely do the system readiness check if you're using that device for testing this window. If you're using the devices already and kids are in LEAP 360 or practice tests, then you should have no problem and really don't need to do it. But you could just as another check. It takes 2 seconds to do. If you have questions about the principal and superintendent secure portal, you should email systemsupport@la.gov. Also, the district data manager or the district security manager, someone who does that kind of work has access to your FTP that is connected to us at LDOE, and they can access that form and then send to whoever needs to fill it out, and then the superintendent. So whoever's the data manager or data coordinator, sometimes it's also the technology coordinator or falls on that team, they would be the person to get that file for you. We have a question about LEAP Connect test administrator training that will come up in the LEAP Connect section, so I'll hold on to those questions. Our next question is about how often does DRC update from eScholar and when are the new students added? So eScholar refreshes every night, and so does DRC. So they are one and the same. When eScholar refreshes every night, I believe it's at midnight or 1 o'clock, then DRC updates as well. So anytime a student transfers to a new school and whoever is enrolling that student into the school adds them to their system, they are now switched in eScholar. It's updated every single day at night. We have a question about the Top Gains and Equity Honorees logo. If you need the logo, feel free to email me and I can send it to you. Okay, so let's jump into test security. Again, these slides are not new, but I wanted to make sure you got just a refresher before testing. So the first thing I wanted to remind you about with test security is There is an investigation report template located in our assessment library under test security. This document is your go-to resource in the instance that you have to complete an investigation of a severe testing irregularity. So you have to void a kid's test, there's plagiarism, anything that would be a severe testing irregularity. This is the report template that is the minimum that a school system must report to us. And that would be sent to assessment@la.gov within the month that you are notified. The sooner the better, because we can help you through that process. So again, this template is the minimum that you or your team at the district level needs to complete and then send to us at assessment@la.gov. Also, as a reminder, at the end of each testing window, we do accommodations audits to ensure that kids with accommodations receive the correct accommodations according to their accommodations plan. Tests that are administered with inappropriate accommodations will be voided for accountability. This is a new slide, but it's something we do every year. We have test security reports that are specific to school systems where we summarize the voids from the previous school year. So the total number of voids your school system has and by school within your school system, any voids for answer change, and then administrative error voids. So this is a few pages that summarizes your district snapshot of voids for the previous school year. If you did not have any voids, then you will not have a report, and you should celebrate that. But if you do have a report, we want you to be able to use this to just reflect on practices, which I'm sure you've already done with those schools if they had them, and anything you can improve for this school year. So those reports will be placed in each of your school systems FTP. So again, that's your data manager or your security manager that has access to the FTP, and those will be located in there. All right, let's jump to K-3 assessments. So this is just an update about our K-2 pilots. Most of you all are a part of this. So this year we have 4 pilots in K-2. We are piloting class for kindergarten, ELA and math curriculum implementation observation tools for grades 1 and 2, a writing rubric for grade 1, and the ELA and math checkup for grade 2. We have several feedback structures that are in place for us to learn about your experiences, implementation, instructional practices in your schools. And so we'll have surveys, focus groups, and site visits to collect feedback on these experiences. Those of you that are participating in any of the 4 pilots will be receiving a survey that will be our pre-survey. It will take a few minutes to complete, and it is due on December 7th. So if you are a part of one of the pilots, you will receive this email, and it should be sent to those directly participating in this pilot. So if you have one school participating in class for kindergarten pilot, you are going to send the survey just to that one school, the principal, the school test coordinator, and then the teachers of those classes that are participating. There will also be a webinar for districts that are participating in the pilot for the ELA and math checkup for grade 2, and that will be on December 12th at 3:30. And we will send those participating districts more information about that soon. And these are some K-3 resources for a reference. All right, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions. We have a question about LEAP 360 reports, so we'll get to that in the LEAP 360 section. So I'll hold on to that question. All right, so let's go ahead and talk through some LEAP 2025 updates. Here are some resources that have been updated and the location on the Louisiana Believes website. So there are assessment guides for grades 3 and 4 for all content areas that have been updated to include the paper-based test schedule for spring 2019. The social studies assessment guides for grades 3 through 8 have been updated to include information about the social studies test reduction this year. We also have an update to the social studies practice test guidance. And again, that reflects the shift in testing time and sessions. The science assessment guides for grades 3 to 8 and biology and the practice test guidance have been updated to include the test session times. Our LEAP Connect ELA constructed response samples are available, and there is one for grades 3 to 5, one for 6 to 8, and one for 11. And these constructed response samples include a student response template, directions for administration, and constructed response stimuli. Due to the social studies assessments in grades 3 to 4 being shortened, the paper-based schedule for grades 3 and 4 has been adjusted. And so this has been updated in the assessment guides, and the schedule is located here. For the LEAP 2025 practice test, teacher access is available for all grades. And the link for teacher access is located here, along with the practice test quick start guide that lists the usernames for each course, and all of the passwords are Teach 2025. For student access, our high school has been available. Our 3 to 8 practice test will be available for students in January. There was also some webinar slides that have been posted to the assessment guidance library that would be great resources for your school. So the first one is the update on the LEAP 2025 social studies grades 3 to 8. So this just goes over the test design changes, the instructional implications of the reduction. And then another webinar is specific to math constructed response items. And it goes through the different pieces necessary to effectively assess reasoning and modeling through constructed response items. And the recordings will be posted this month, but the webinars the PowerPoints are located in the assessment guidance library. These next few slides are just reminders, but again, I'm not going to go through these in depth, but if you have home study students, you're probably already preparing for them for the fall. The FAQ linked here gives you everything you need to know about testing home study students and non-public school students during this window. And the next slide goes over testing students from non-public schools. So one thing to point out is that the cost for our non-public students changed. It used to be $50 per test, it is now $35 per test. But all the procedures, the processes, anything you've done in your district for home study or non-public should be the same. So there have been no changes with the exception of the cost being reduced for non-public students. And the key dates for our fall window are located here. So you've already managed users since July. Test setup started last month, along with assigning and entering test administrator numbers. If you had materials such as Braille or communication assistant scripts for sign language interpreters, those have been delivered to you. And the window for ordering those additional materials has already opened as well. We will start testing tomorrow. Any test ticket invalidations must be completed. The verification forms need to be sent to LDOE, and all of those are due on the last day of testing, which is December 14th. All of the accommodated materials that were sent in your shipment need to be returned by December 21st. And then if there are any rescore requests, with the exception of the new LEAP 2025 biology, That due date is January 11th, and the information for how to submit a rescore request is in your test coordinator manual. A few reminders about accommodations. Again, all of these slides are not new. They are repeats. Wanted you all to see them again, but I did want to just point out a few things. I know several of you all do like a night before top 5 things to your school test coordinators to need to know. So hopefully some of the things that I've mentioned today are included in that. So one update this year is that the online calculator is available in the non-calculator session for kids that have the calculator accommodation. They can still use a handheld calculator, but just so you know, they will also have a calculator displayed in that section if they have the accommodation. You also want to make sure that your school test coordinators have assigned accommodations or accessibility features for kids that have a personal needs profile, or they have an English learner checklist. So those do not come automatically populated. They need to make sure those are selected prior to putting kids into a test session. After that, school test coordinator should review and verify accommodations and accessibilities for every kid. So not just the ones that have an EL checklist and a personal needs profile, but also those that have an IAP or an IEP. The student test rosters have student accommodations on it so that the TA can quickly see who has text-to-speech and who has Spanish, which are the 2 accommodations that impact the test seen on the screen. If you have students taking English 3, these directions are in the manual, but as you know, this is an old test where standards were not integrated, and so there are separate reading comprehension sections that cannot be read aloud or signed to students, and tests will be voided if that happens. So the system will read aloud what it is supposed to read aloud. It will skip the things that are reading comprehension, so trust that the computer is doing it correctly, and it will handle all of that for you. This is just a quick reference, just like in your manual, about how to unlock and invalidate test tickets. If you do so, please complete the testing irregularity form and submit it to assessment@la.gov. Also, as a reminder for reports, all the reports except for the new LEAP 2025 biology will be available 4 days after a student completes all the sessions and exits the test properly. Seniors that get an automatic rescore will receive scores 8 days after taking their test, because the first 4 are for the initial score, then there's another 4 for the rescore. So that is where the 8 days comes from. These scores for the LEAP 2025 biology 5-level assessment will be available in the summer, just like our U.S. history scores were this year. Couple other reminders, student transfer information is in a chart in your test coordinator manual, but it's also located on here. So as a reminder, if you have a new student that moves into the school system, contact DRC or by emailing or calling their customer support line. If a student moves from one school to another within your school system before testing starts, then you can edit that information in the system. If a student moves from one school to another school in your school system after testing has begun, then you will need to contact DRC. Also, as a reminder, you as the district test coordinator have access to a bunch of things behind the scenes while testing is occurring, including testing statistic reports, which gives you Excel files, a quick glance at how your schools are completing tests, where they are, how many kids have logged in, those kinds of things. There's also a student status dashboard. It's dynamic, so you can see charts or graphs and pick which school, which subject, all of those things if you are monitoring at a district level to see how your sites are doing. Accountability coding is the same, so wait till the end of the window to apply any accountability codes in eDirect. So at the end of the window, so maybe the last week, the last few days, you will want to place an accountability code to students that have one, and you can just put all of those kids into one test session by subject and apply that accountability code. And again, this is the technical assistance protocol that we reviewed earlier. All right, I'm going to pause for, or no, I'm not. I'm going to go one more slide and then I'll pause for questions. So we've recently gotten several questions about the conversion table. So I wanted to add a slide on this for you all to know, since you're the ones that are probably being asked. So we have conversion tables that help schools and teachers factor test scores into final grades for high school. And the relationship between the LEAP 2025 scale scores and the grading scale scores ensures that a student who got advanced, got an A, a mastery, a B, and so on. Because different courses have different scale score cuts, each course has its own conversion table. So there's a separate one for U.S. history, a separate one for English 1. There's also a conversion table that's specific to the grading scale by the district. So if you access the conversion tables linked here, they are posted at the state grading scale. If your district uses a different grading scale, you can contact me and I can send you the appropriate table for the grading scale. And these are in the assessment library. All right, so I'm going to pause for questions. We have a question about where the PowerPoint is posted. So this is in the assessment library. If you don't have it bookmarked, you can go to LouisianaBelieves.com and type assessment in the search box, and the assessment library will pop up as the first thing. And there is a section called webinars. And in that section, all of the PowerPoints are located. There's also a Word or a PDF of an archive of all the webinars from last year. And then there's the link to the YouTube account where you can view the recording of presentations. We have a question about students who have the accommodation for native language directions. Those native language directions should be posted very soon. They will be located in the Documents tab of eDirect, and you will print out whichever language you need. So they are separated by the 7 languages that we translate, so French, Spanish, Arabic, etc., and you will download those for that test administrator. There's a question about personal needs profiles and who they apply to. So personal needs profiles are for students that do not have an accommodations plan, and they are for accessibility features, meaning these students need to have access increased on the test, and there are a few options to pick from that are something that the school test coordinator needs to plan for. So if a student has an accommodations plan, they will not have a personal needs profile. Those accessibility features are on the accommodations plan. If a student does not have an accommodations plan and they need to have access increased for their assessment, then the school test coordinator will go through the same process by meeting in a group, talking to teachers, what evidence do we have to see that this student would need this accessibility feature, and they complete the form. The accessibility features include small group, individual testing, read aloud to self, specialized equipment or furniture, and math read aloud. The personal needs profile is located in the assessment library under accommodations, and that document, I would say districts have a different procedure, but I would say for the most part, school test coordinators and district test coordinators have a copy of that in their records. So you can implement whatever procedures you'd like to do as far as how to set that process up or who needs a copy of it, but that is up to you all. The next question is about English 1 and English 2 read aloud. So yes, if a student has ELA read aloud as an accommodation, the entire English 1 or English 2 test is read aloud. English 3 is being phased out, so next year this test will not exist. It will be district administered like Law 2 and GEE. We will not administer as a state because it is an older test that is not included in our LEAP 2025 assessment system. It is different with the read aloud because when we adopted new standards, they were integrated. So our assessments were aligned to those standards, which were integrated. And since the ELA standards are integrated, the entire test is read aloud, which is also why the smallest percentage of students have this accommodation. So again, if they have ELA read aloud, that means the student is blind, hasn't learned Braille, or needs it read aloud for visual impairment. They are deaf and they have a sign language interpreter sign the test to them. Or the third thing would be that the student cannot access the text. So those three things are the same as they have been for several years. It's the same criteria for ELA read aloud. This should maybe be 1 or 2 kids at a school. And those tests for any, even grades 3 to 8, but for English 1 and for English 2, the entire test is read aloud because the standards are integrated. Everything is together. We don't have a separate spelling section or a separate reading comprehension section anymore like our older tests do. Next question is about students that get native directions. So any accommodation that a student has should be used every day, all day in the classroom. So accommodations are not for testing. They are for accommodating a student's disability during the instructional day. So that student should receive that accommodation all year, all day, every day. It should be something that they are used to receiving. They cannot have an accommodation solely for testing. We have a question about LEAP 360, if there's a conversion table for LEAP 360. Like we have for the LEAP 2025 test. So no. So the LEAP 360 tests are not summative tests. They are not designed for achievement levels. They are a formative assessment on a small group of standards. It is 2 totally different types of tests. There are no achievement levels for LEAP 360, and those should not be created or made up by districts. It is not a test designed for achievement levels. So no, we do not have a conversion table for that. Okay, let me jump to ACT and WorkKeys. So just a couple updates. One is based on feedback we received from you all last year, we are having a webinar for test coordinators, meaning you or school test coordinators. It is designed for brand new test coordinators, but feel free to join. It will be just on the ACT test administration. It is Thursday at 3:30, and we'll cover the topics on the screen. The webinar information is listed below. We will also post the PowerPoint and record it. So if you cannot attend on Thursday, you will definitely be able to have access to it. As a reminder, the site readiness period for ACT Online is currently happening, and it ends January 25th. So for those districts who are taking ACT Online or want to take ACT Online, you and your district technology staff will need to make sure that you all meet the technical requirements that are linked here and review the site readiness plan that's on the ACT state testing site. And these are ACT and WorkKeys resources as a reference. All right, let's jump into LEAP Connect and Law 1. So these are key dates. We have the LEAP Connect OTTs that are available and materials. We have the student response check, which is available in Insight if you have schools or teachers that need to do that. And then managing users with an eDirect is still available. So when we come back from the holidays in January, that will be when a lot of things will open up in the system to prepare for February testing for Leap Connect and Law 1. Next month in December, we will have all of the Leap Connect, Law 1, and ELPT test security and test administration training so that you have that prior to the holiday. So when you come back, you can begin your training in January. Also, as a reminder, ESSA requires states to ensure that only students with the most significant disabilities take Leap Connect. The department has released enhancements to STIR with guidance to help school systems verify that their students meet the criteria. For any student that will participate this year in the Leap Connect assessment, the school system must add qualifying cognitive and/or adaptive assessment results to verify eligibility by January 4th. So keep this in mind as holidays approach. This has to be in before January 4th. This is 30 days prior to the opening of the window. So February 4th is the last day to have this information for students who meet the criteria for Leap Connect. If they do not meet the criteria for Leap Connect, then they will take the regular assessment Leap 2025. The Leap Connect administrator training was delivered earlier this month, and it is posted in the assessment library. This presentation has information on the topics listed here. So if you want to get a jump start on training and preparing what you would like to deliver to your district or school staff, I would definitely recommend checking out the PowerPoint that we did earlier this month. As mentioned earlier, the online tools training for Leap Connect are still available. They can be accessed through the OTT site in Chrome or by clicking on the Insight desktop icon. When they go into the Leap Connect online tools training, students and teachers will be able to familiarize themselves with the assessment and with the detailed process of administering this assessment. So with the online tools training on the computer, there is an online tools training directions for test administration that is located in eDirect under the Documents tab. The OTT directions must be used alongside the online tools training, similar to how the test directions must be used alongside of the operational test. The directions for test administration are much more than reading the items aloud. Even if a student is using the text-to-speech of the computer, there is something that teachers do for every item in addition to that. So it is very important that your test administrators are familiar with the directions for test administration, and they know that it is absolutely required to use that document in conjunction with administering the test. So for the online tools training, we have it set up just the same way as the operational. The online tools training in the system, and then directions for test administration for the online tools training. And this is a sample. So on the left side of the screen, this would be a sample you would see in the online tools training. And on the right side are the directions for test administration. So you'll notice that there are several differences because the teacher is explaining things. They may be pointing to something. They may be getting one of the reference materials to put in front of the student. They may be adding additional verbiage. So it's very, very important that teachers are familiar with doing this. The ELA constructed response section involves multiple steps, and test administrators should have the opportunity to prepare for this. So they can prepare for this up to 2 weeks before administering the test on whatever day is scheduled. There are sample constructed response items, and there's training on how to do this that has already been held and posted in the assessment guidance library. So there are constructed response samples for Leap Connect that also include those directions for administration and stimuli. They're in grade bands. So we have a 3 to 5 item, a grade 6 to 8 item, and 11. And then the webinars that go over step-by-step demonstrations and guidance on this are also posted in the assessment guidance library. And this last slide in this section lists our resources for Lead Connect. Moving on to ELPS and ELPT. Again, here are key dates. So we also have an online tools training for ELPT, the English Language Proficiency Test. TIDE user management is available, and TIDE is also open for student management, and that opened yesterday. This is a little bit more detail on the secure browser that you and your technology coordinator should have. Again, the information about how to update this browser is in the EL portal and must be done by December 31st. Yesterday, when student management opened, you and your school test coordinators can verify that all English learners are in TIDE. They are correctly identified. This is based on October 1 counts. If you have additional students that need to be added to TIDE, you can do this under the Preparing for Testing tab. The TIDE user guide is also linked here and located in the EL portal. And these are ELPT resources for your reference. All right, moving into LEAP 360. As we look forward to planning for next school year 2019-20, the department is sharing that LEAP 360 will continue to be provided at no cost to school systems for the 2019-2020 school year. As in previous years, school systems will be required to sign a memorandum of understanding which protects the content of the test. The MOU for LEAP 360 along with system release dates will become available in January. Districts should anticipate a cost for the following school year. The mini trainings and one-pagers document has been updated, so it is complete. The rest of the trainings have been posted along with webinars, and those are located in the District's Guide to LEAP 360 and in the separate document called eDirect Mini Trainings and One-Pagers in the LEAP 360 library. The report schedule for the interim key dates for phase 1 and phase 2 are listed here. So we already have high school forms 1 to 3, ELA grades 3 to 8 form 1, math grades 3 to 8 form 1, math grades 6 to 8 form 2 that have already been released. All of that information is already out. The second phase will be in January, and that will be for ELA grades 3 to 8 form 2 and math grades 3 to 5 form 2. The report schedule for interim phase 1 is located on this slide. Test session summaries, school summaries, and test session rosters began posting yesterday and are updated every 24 hours. There are 2 new reports. The school list and test session list reports will begin to post next Monday. And the report schedule for interim phase 2 is located on this slide. So initial posts for reports will begin January 11th because those assessments will be available for kids January 10th. EAGLE items are continuously being added into the EAGLE system. All additions are reflected in the Teacher's Guide to LEAP 360 appendix. And these are the EAGLE item types. We also have interactive reporting that was released a few weeks ago that has student history and response lookup. So this is a tool for teachers to be able to review the history of LEAP 360 assessments for a student and also to look at individual students' responses. This is particularly helpful for technology enhanced items, so teachers can see a screenshot of what the student did on the technology enhanced item. The next few slides are refreshers on how to give permissions and how to access these sections in interactive reporting, but these are not new, so I'll skip through those since we are short on time. For our national and international assessments, we have one update from NAEP. So if you are a district that has a school selected for NAEP, there is a tutorial that's been posted for school test coordinators to prepare for NAEP. There will also be more information about preparing for NAEP that's on the NAEP website. Your school test coordinators will be contacted by NAEP in January to schedule a pre-assessment review call to help prepare for the administration. And these are our communication structures. The next collaboration that is coming up is in January and February, and that is for supervisors and principals. And the registration will open on January 7th and close the 25th. There are 2 areas of focus: school system redesign plans for this year and then planning for next school year. And the information about the collaborations, locations, and times are located on this slide. If you have changes to your assessment and accountability staff, please send those to assessment@la.gov using this form. Our customer service phone numbers and emails are located here. This might come in very handy starting tomorrow, so I would make sure your school test coordinators have access to this document. A few next steps: our office hours will be the 4th and 18th of December. Our monthly call will be the 11th. And then a few other things that we mentioned during the call. So I'm going to quickly go through just a couple questions. If you are a non-public DTC that has just joined, please hang on for just 1 minute. We are about to wrap up. We have a question about retesting for high school. So if a student did not pass a high school LEAP 2025 or EOC assessment, they can retest this fall. If they are graduating or a student that did not pass but is not enrolled in the biology class, then they will take the 4-level biology. Students must pass one of the 2 tests in a set. So, for example, if a student takes the biology and U.S. history test and they pass one of them, that will count for graduation. So they do not have to retest on the other set unless they are in the class and they take it at the end of that class. All right, I think those are all the questions. As always, if you need anything, let us know. Email assessment@la.gov. Happy testing tomorrow. We will be anticipating calls and questions. Anything you need, please let us know. You all do an excellent job, so I know that this administration is going to be just as smooth as the others have been. So again, have a great day, and I wish you happy testing tomorrow. If you are a non-public district test coordinator, I am about to share the non-public district test coordinator presentation. This is available in the assessment library and is labeled Assessment and Accountability Call November 2018-non-public. So this one is specific to you all. So if you'd like to go to the assessment library and download it or take notes, feel free to do that. It is available there.